This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I'm Dr. Perry, and today I have with us Ross Marino. He's an advisor for 30 plus years who fell in love with investments in the ninth grade, and he received a copy of Money Magazine as a birthday gift. He is the founder of Transitus Wealth Partners, a fee-only financial planning firm that helps people make decisions when life happens and plans change. Ross is also the founder of Advisor 2X, which has hosted more than 1,000 events and conferences for financial advisors since 2010. Ross is also married to his incredible wife of 31 years, has two nearly perfect children, and shares his home with multiple pets that live to be served by humans. Thanks, Ross, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I love your intro. I love how personal you are. And, you know, we've had a chance to get to know each other before the show and talk about your events and the great things that you're doing for advisors. But first, tell us about ninth grade. Tell us how you got into the industry. Everybody has such a unique, way into this industry. I'd love to hear what your story was.
Well, you first have to wonder what kind of ninth grader is actually supposed to get a Money Magazine when someone says, you know what? I got to give this kid a copy of Money Magazine. I guess I was always fascinated with business and how things worked and really how people thought. So it was a birthday present and got the Money Magazine, loved it. The follow-up to that was a subscription to Psychology Today, compliments of my mother. And of course, having no idea back in the 1980s that finances and investments combined with how people think and feel, that's pretty much financial planning right there of today. So had the roots way back when and really thought about what I liked back then, just had no idea it would actually turn into financial planning.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember the day that I was interested in financial planning. I think I was about 12 years old, and I was on a paper route and I was collecting, because back then you would go door to door with these tabs and say, hey, you didn't pay your bill. And I was collecting on like adults who wouldn't pay their newspaper bill. And one of these guys that was home was like, oh yeah, here. And he wrote me a check. And I'm like, it's kind of like mid-afternoon. Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I work from home. I'm a day trader. And I was like, what's that? And he told me all about it. And I was like, I want to be that when I grow up. Like, that sounds so cool. So it sounds like we both had some proddings when we were a little younger, and it served us well. That's great for sharing. I appreciate you for sharing that, Ross. So I always like to ask, different people, advisors to advisors, and business owners in general, what their definition of balance is. I get lots of different answers, and I'd love to know what yours is so our audience can really benefit from what you're thinking about balance.
I sought balance like most people out there. If you have any time and energy into personal development and you want to improve and you want to become a better person, balance is always going to be at the forefront of it. And I think it comes from our values. We think, maybe I'm working too much. I need more time with my family. And, I'm spending time with my family and I'm working, but I'm not taking care of my body. What good am I if I have a heart attack at age 50 and drop over dead? I didn't accomplish what I needed to. So I think balance is always going to be there. But I'll tell you, I had a mental shift. It was probably 15 years ago. And Sunday morning, I was at church. Pastor does a message on being centered. And he first drew the picture of balance. And of course, it was like a seesaw where things were equal. And how much time do you spend at work? And how much time do you spend with your family? It's not really balanced from a time standpoint because those hours may not match up. And everything else you want to do out there, how do you actually balance them? Because there really isn't equality to it. But that's the goal, and it's great for our mindset. But he talked about being centered and, drew a little circle in the center and then connected dots with everything else. And I thought, that's the right idea for me. Because sometimes I'm going to have to work a little longer. Sometimes I'm going to need more time with my family. March 2020, markets fall apart. I decided I needed to work a little longer because I set a target of I want to talk to every client in the next 6 weeks. So I worked a little longer. Last time I had done that, I think it was 2009. So strange for me. I'm not that excessive at work, but there was a time period where there was no balance per se, but I knew that's what I needed to do. And if you have someone at home that has health issues, all of a sudden you're not working as much. So the whole balance thing, that goes out of the window, but knowing that I need to put work on the back burner, certain things, but I need to spend more time helping my family or taking care of my family, it comes and goes, and that's okay. So I try to stay centered and always check myself.
Love that idea. I mean, even on my book, I was searching for an image for a long time of what does balance really represent. I've interviewed, hundreds of advisors and business owners, and everybody has, like I said, a different definition. But this theme kept running through, and that is it's this fluid motion. It's not some stagnant, specific, make hours line up in every single part of your life, like you mentioned. But it's that centered. I like that definition. I'm gonna borrow that. But it is kind of like this, this seesaw that balances back and forth. And at times, seasons in your life, like you mentioned, you do need to spend some more time at work, or you do need to spend some more time helping that loved one at home or whatever it is. But it really comes down to priority management, doesn't it?
And priorities are also going to shift over time. I agree with you. An example would be is maybe my priority right now is work and family and not as much on health. But all of a sudden something happens, life happens, plans change. And I realize, you know what? I need to increase my health. I need to make that more of a priority. So it is priority management, but I think we have to be careful not to be, and you just brought it up, not to be so strict that this is what I do. And I'm going to exercise 4 times a week. And I'm going to do this twice a week. And I'm going to make sure I have coffee with my wife 3 times a week. And, those are nice objectives, but life doesn't quite work that way because life happens. But as long as you're aware of your priorities and you're sitting down and you're thinking through them, sometimes you put a little more time in one area. Sometimes you put a little less time in it. But as long as you establish your priorities, which I think are going to be driven by your values, it's going to be a little easier to make those decisions. But at the end of the day, life doesn't really care about my priorities or values. I'm convinced of that because I've seen it over and over. So I just got to battle on a daily basis and try to keep things front and center.
I love it. I mean, I couldn't say it better. Thanks for mentioning that. It's so crucial what you just mentioned, just not being too strict about everything. And there is a continuum that I tell my clients, hey, there's this continuum between being so structured and so loose with your schedule. Those people, they'll say yes to everything and then they pile everything up and they don't know what's going on. They fly by the seat of their pants. They're fun to hang out with, aren't they? Like they're super fun. But then there's those very structured people who, everything is structured. And if a little thing gets out of whack, their entire day is a mess, right? But there is a happy medium in between here. And maybe it's a flow between those. Hey, I've got to be flexible and structured so that you can be okay with moving some pieces around. So I really like that you brought that up. Well, as an advisor, and you are an advisor, but you're also helping advisors, and we'll get to that in a second. You do both. You kind of wear both hats, which is awesome. I love having these types of guests on because you check both boxes for me, Ross. And I know there's a lot of advisors who've listened to this show, and there's also many in the industry who serve these advisors. What do you think for you personally has been or is the biggest issue trying to achieve your sense of balance?
I'll tie it to the stage of career. So early on in your career, you may be just nervous about, am I going to be able to make it in the business? And it's tough to say, well, you can't work too much and you got to make sure you have balance. But if you're risking not being able to make it in the business, especially if you're a solo advisor or solopreneur, that's kind of a scary thing. So early on, what is balance? I don't have a formula for you, but I vividly remember the days when you lived quarter to quarter and you weren't quite sure what you were going to get the next quarter. And it was AUM, assets under management back then, a bear market on the balance sheet didn't look so pretty. So how do you achieve balance knowing that a 30% bear market that may last for a year or two could literally doom your career? That is scary stuff. And no matter how grounded you are, spiritually, personally, relationally, this is scary stuff for people. So early on in the career, I certainly slanted towards working extra hours. I did. Would I have considered that really centered or balanced back then? I don't want to judge myself. Actually, sure I do. No, I wasn't, right? Because you're literally concerned and afraid that if you don't make enough and get your business to a certain point, that you may not be able to stay in the business. Now, once you cross over that point where you realize, you know what, I'm actually okay. If the markets dip, I'm okay. If a couple clients leave, I'm okay. Once you get to that point, it's much easier to look at balance. And it's also much easier if you're building a practice to focus on a niche. I love the consultants that say, you got to focus on a niche. Well, the niche I'd love to do, I have 2 clients. And if nobody else calls, I got a problem, right? So that's a scary thing as well. So early on in your career, I think you're going to slant towards working a little extra. And it's okay because you got to get the business up and running. And then as things start to grow, try not to create the monster that you have to feed every day. And then realize that, you know what, if I took a week off, it wouldn't kill me. If I didn't get any new clients for the next 6 months, would my business just implode? No. Once I start realizing that, I think it's much easier to try to achieve that balance.
Yeah, and you're exactly right as far as, stages of the business. I did find personally as an advisor myself that there was a big push at the beginning of your career, right, to just go out and produce and be a producer and sell. And, this is a different time. I know a lot of other advisory firms are moving more towards, salary-based employees and maybe some bonus structure. But, beginning my career, there was this push to, work extra hours. But I found even veterans in the same group I was at, they've been doing this for 20 plus years. We're still working the same hours. And there's this, basically workaholic trap that they get kind of stuck in. That's why I particularly like what you were saying is, okay, at the beginning, just know you probably are going to work a little bit extra, but once you make some traction, pull back those reins. What do you think has helped you to make sure that you're able to pull back and you don't, overexert when you're making some progress and you don't just keep working and become a workaholic?
That is a tough question, Travis. I think part of it's just going to be wiring. So I know that I'm in the camp that once I knew the business was secure, I wasn't as hungry. And that's just reality. And that's not right or wrong, but that's just how it was. So the people that, the sales guys that are hungry, the planners that are looking to build, I remember feeling that. And then as soon as I knew I had margin and I could hire people, all of a sudden, not so much. So I wasn't really driven by that top line revenue growth and the expansion of the business. But what kept me in check and what allowed me to pull back, 2 things. One is I do have an outside business. I love what I do on the outside. I have other activities that I do. And I wanted to make sure that one area of what I did didn't really hurt the other area. So I didn't try to grow the practice too much, even though I was actually still building other businesses. But the other side, and this is what really helped me, and it has nothing to do with maturity or IQ or anything else, is I have a special needs daughter and I have a wife who has some health issues and gone on for about 15 years. It disrupts my life. It's what led to me changing my practice to Transitus, which is transitions in Latin. That creates certain boundaries where I can't create the monster. I have to have margin in my schedule. So I was kind of forced into it. So sometimes I'll talk with people and they'll say, oh, look at how you do your schedule. It looks like you have great balance. I'm like, yeah, don't be impressed. So it's more reactive than actually intentional. But when you have those constraints, it really forces you to decide, what do I need to put time into? How much do I want to grow this thing? And that's really helped. So those constraints have really helped me just focus on what are the priorities and just not get too crazy in one area.
Let me ask you, I had an interview with a veteran in the industry who said, you know what, Travis, the definition of my balance is my family. It's my wife. And I think what you mentioned there is crucial. And I know a little bit about what you were going through, as you and I have had conversations about this in the past, but you kind of glossed over it pretty fast. Like, this is a big deal. What you've been through is an ordeal. And I don't want to, drag this on, but I want to give it, importance. But don't you think that challenge has also been a reason to help make you balanced, right? Help keep you balanced, help keep those priorities in line. Do you see it that way? Do you see it as a help, as like, no, my family is what it is. Like, and everybody has different situations. Everybody can relate to this, whether it's a health issue, a relationship issue, even a financial issue, right? There are definitely things that pull us out of work and realize, okay, my clients are great, but my family, I need to take care of them. So maybe talk to us a little bit about that, how that's really helped you.
There's no doubt that the person I am today, what I value, how I structure my day is in direct response to the constraints I've had in my life. And that's why I kind of joke about it. It's not that I'm this hyper-focused, high-value person of, I know what I want out of life. I meditate for an hour in the morning and, read the Bible for an hour and I'm just so dialed in. Yeah, that sounds great, but it's actually much more responsive to that. And not that I was working 80 hours a week or have some crazy story of, hey, this is how I was, and then I had to settle down. So, I don't really have any good stories like that. So I'm not a real exciting person when it comes to storytelling, but the constraints, they're there. They're non-negotiable constraints. So when we were building out Advisor 2X, people have commented that you have such a great team and, looks like they're really on top of things. I'm like, well, of course, because whatever I thought was a good idea, I couldn't do it. So I'm truly just the idea guy. I'm not a micromanager, in part because I really stink at management and the details. So it's not even possible, but I'm really not a manager at all. So I had to create a company where the people here literally created, built, and ran all the different parts. And that was due to constraints. Same thing on the financial planning side. So when you have those constraints that are non-negotiable, it forces you to focus on how to build things and how to run your day and how to grow a business where that it's going to rely on a lot of people. And is that a great way to build a business? I'm going to say it's the best way to build a business. But I didn't wake up one day and say, this is it. I should write a book because I know how to do this. I'm that smart. No, you just look up and realize I have X amount of time and mental energy. How are we going to make this work? And it's worked out.
Yeah. You speak to a really good point of human development. Some people have to make change because they've been thinking about it for a while. And then there's a big catalyst. That catalyst ignites them and they're like, I've got to do this. And you actually mentioned this earlier on about your health. Well, there may be times where you've got to spend more time on your health. Maybe you had a heart attack and you survived. And the doctor's like, you got to change everything about your life. Right. That's the example here. But what I love about what you're saying is that these non-negotiables have structured your business. It's not the other way around. Your business hasn't decided what your personal life is going to be like. You're coming from the personal end saying, no, business, you're not going to control these aspects of my life because here's your time slot. Here's your energy that you can put in, Ross, as the business owner. The other point that I think is huge, it comes up in almost every single one of these podcast interviews, and that is micromanagement. It's being the idea guy and being able to step back and just be the rainmaker. So many advisors, this is what they're telling me, constantly. Either they're not balanced, they don't manage their time or priorities well, or they have that down, but they want to scale and they're worried that if they start to scale and grow, that they'll lose that balance, right? And what I think one of the keys that I see so many times is just leadership. How do you lead? How can you be a balanced leader? So not only are you balanced, but you have balanced leadership by getting out of the way and not micromanaging and being that idea guy. That's huge. That's huge. If you were to say, here's one or two things that help me to do just that, to just be the idea guy, what would you tell other advisors who are trying to scale, trying to build, trying to lead, who want to keep that balance, as they're developing it or they're there? What are maybe one or two things that you could say, this has been helpful for me to not micromanage, to just stay in the idea area?
I think I'm fortunate that I think long-term and I play the long game and I don't get bogged down in the details. We have a budget with Advisor 2X and our CFO, his name's Trey Dowdy, known him for 20 years. And we have a standard joke, and that is the budget is Trey's problem. Right. So I don't want to get distracted by it. And it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it kind of isn't, because I don't want to get bogged down in the details. So I think trying to look out and play the long game is the start. And when you do that, if I look out 5, 10 years, or any advisor says, okay, let's look out 5 years. Not that we have a clue what the world's going to look like in 5 years, but we have to at least look for a destination so we can set direction. So we know what's the next step we're going to do. If I look out 5 years and say, I'd like to double my practice or triple my practice, great. What will I be doing then? I'm pretty sure I can go down the list of many of my activities and put a line right through them. What I'm doing today, I know if my practice doubled or tripled, I'm not doing that down the road. So once I get that in my brain, that what I'm doing today is temporary, I won't be doing this down the road if I'm successful, it really motivates me much more to say, you know what, let's get this off my plate now. An application would be is we just installed some software and we did some programs. We could have saved money on the software, but we looked out 3 to 5 years and said, I don't want a nickel and dime on this because, again, the budget is Trey's problem. Let's get the software that we know will work with us when we double and triple and quadruple, because that's what we're going to need. So I'd rather do that investment up front than try to switch 3 or 4 years down the road. But as you know, Travis, it's not easy. You're asking people to give things up. And in many cases, you're asking them to spend money to hire somebody, to pay for technology, to leverage an outsource partner, to free them up for their highest and best use. And you're always taking, Taylor Schulte said it on my show a little while ago, you're taking one step back before you take two forward. And he had connected that to a new golf coach. When they come in and mess with your swing, you're about to stink and it's okay. And you're going to tweak your golf swing and you're going to get a little better. Well, in our world, if I'm going to do that, my net income just went down because I hired somebody to take on some of this stuff. But if I'm convinced that this is what the business needs to look like, something like this 3 to 5 years from now, then I'll take that leap and do that.
Well, that's a great long-term perspective. 2 takeaways: outsource what you need to outsource. That's Trey's problem, right? And be okay with that. But the two, then, look those 3 to 5 years down the road and say, what am I doing right now that's temporary? I have a very similar objective when I work with clients that, hey, let's find out what's your top 5. And you should look at that constantly. You should look at that, maybe not every day, but probably once a year-ish, to be able to say, hey, where am I at? And what can I delegate more and more? Maybe quarterly is a good idea as well. Well, so what, looking at we've talked a little bit about, you and some of your expertise, and we've touched on the industry just slightly here with talking about letting go of control and delegating. What other issues do you see for advisors who are trying to find balance? And what issues are stereotypical for this industry that you've worked with other advisors? You train them and help them in a lot of different ways, but you also work with them in your own environment, and you are one. So what do you think is typical of this industry for getting us off track, getting us out of balance?
I think part of it may be we're often so convinced as financial planners that we can plan the future and we can set up our day and our week and our month, and we can say, this is what balance is to me because this is how I think life is going to play out. And once again, as we know, life could care less about what my priorities are. So I think the challenge for advisors for many of them, is give yourself some grace and understand that, monthly, quarterly, that's a great idea. You have to walk through these objectives. What are your priorities? And I think the way it'll make it easier for us to understand that is think about what our clients go through. When the phone rings or you receive an email, it's rarely, well, I just wanted to check in and see how things are going. No, it's life happened. And right now, I'm not sure what to do, or more specifically, I'm not sure I'm going to be okay. It doesn't matter if they have a few $100,000 or a few million. When life happens and that uncertainty creeps in, it's scary. And all of a sudden, we have to help these people. This goes on every single week for your typical financial planner. I can give you 2 calls already this week. We're recording. It isn't even Friday when we're doing this recording. 2 calls this week from clients that talked about major disruptions with people. In my case, they actually have significant financial assets, not feeling any better about life because of that. And it's disrupted. We see this around us. So we have to make sure we know on our end, it's going to happen as well. It's okay. Life's going to happen. Set your target, figure out what your next step's going to be, put in your balance and your priorities. That's great. And then understand that by the end of today or tomorrow when you wake up, that may all change, and that's okay. It's okay for our clients when they call in because we help them, and it's okay in my life as well and in my practice.
Yeah. You bring up that again, it's a consistent theme I'm seeing from a lot of your answers and responses, just grace, priorities, be flexible, because you've seen this, and I do recommend an ideal calendar. I recommend trying to plan, but you're right. If you're so stuck to it, again, it's being that so rigid, time Nazi type of situation where like, I've got to manage and plan everything because we're planners, right? We want to plan so many things, but maybe we should be planning for those contingencies, right? Do we have contingency plans? Do we have plan B, plan C? And are we okay with when things don't go our way? Are we all right? Do we have an emotional response that is going to be not too stressful when we're dealing with markets, clients, everything that you just kind of mentioned? I think that's a really good point. What do you think has helped you to deal with change, deal with these issues? Because obviously you kind of had that attitude of, grace, and life doesn't really care. It moves on. But where did you get that attitude? Where does that, kind of come from, or how did you create that so that you could be okay when things shift?
#clueless. That's my world. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen next year or 10 years from now. Due to my own personal situation, my family, I can tell you there is no retirement planning. We don't have conversations about 20 years from now. It is not a topic in my house. That's okay. We may talk about the weekend, because I've come to the point where I've seen life change so much for myself, for family members around me, for clients as well, that I realize #clueless is my battle cry. If I was a tattoo guy, I'd have a #clueless tattoo. Although, don't they have the ones now that fade within a year? Maybe I'll do that just to freak out my kids, right? But put it on, say, oh yeah, daddy's got to represent. This is me right here, #clueless. So actually that wouldn't work. But that's what it comes down to. I think going through so much in life where you realize that you have no idea what's going to happen. And I like what you said about planning contingency. So this would be a really good example with that. School ended at 3:00 for my kids. I knew I had to be available at that time, even if I didn't have to pick them up for school. So client calls were not scheduled after 3:00. Other meetings may be scheduled, internal meetings, knowing that I'm out and everybody here knows that that's okay. So that's a contingency where I have my schedule. However, it's not written in pen. Is it the ideal week? Absolutely. Is it going to happen most of the time? Maybe, but it's okay. So I have to figure out how to work with that and how to build in the contingencies. The other part is the major disruptions in life. Think about losing a job that you thought you were going to retire with, divorce, death, disability, something catastrophic in your life. You cannot plan contingencies on how you're going to think and how you're going to feel when that happens. We can plan insurance and we can plan for the worst case scenario. So there's financial planning to go through that. But the human side, other than personally building resilience and being healthy and personal development, I really can't conceive what that's going to be like. I'm clueless. But if it happens, it happens. And then I just have to figure out how to deal with it and figure it out.
Well, I think this speaks a lot to what you're trying to help advisors and clients do as far as planning for these contingencies, knowing that life at any moment can change. Obviously that was the spawn of this book of Achieving Balance. I woke up one day and life was the same. And by the afternoon, my father passed away. I had no idea this would happen.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I'm dealing with mom and family and left my work for 2 weeks to go and take care of everything. It just gets flipped upside down. And everybody has times in their life where life gets turned upside down. For you, you wrote a whole book about it, right? You wrote a book and it's on Amazon. I'm sure there's other places we can talk about where they can purchase it, but called Shaping Change. How to respond when life disrupts your retirement plan. like you're the man when it comes to talking about how do you shape this change? How do you deal with it? And you bring up a really good point, which, by the way, research does support. Resiliency in children, whether they've been through divorce, whether they've been through trauma, they can build resilience. They're not broken forever. The research is very clear that children can get through this. That tells me everything I need to know. Adults can get through this that have fully formed, developed brains, right? They can be resilient to change of market, change of family dynamics, or, if things get turned upside down and their retirement plan goes off the rails. So talk to us a little bit about the book and why you wrote it.
I'll do a little bit on my story and I'll give you the short version. So became a financial advisor at age 21. By age 26, I said, got to do financial planning, need to be a financial planner. My wife and I were in Florida. We moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, to open up a branch and launch a financial planning practice. Didn't know anybody in the town, but when you're 26, you're not smart enough to know that may not be the best idea. So you do it anyway. And my wife, she married me. So there you have it. Like, hey, Wilmington, let's go. So we arrive in Wilmington, North Carolina. Within 30 days, I have a back injury. I end up spending the next 6 years working in a room over my garage, mostly laying on the floor on pillows. Couldn't go out and do lunches with clients, couldn't network. The internet wasn't much of a thing, couldn't create digital marketing, couldn't golf. Rough 6 years. When I talk about not knowing if you're going to make it quarter to quarter, that was the time frame that you're in there. I had great plans. I was ready to work hard. I was getting my CFP. Let me tell you what I'm going to do, Travis. I'm going to build this practice. No, you're actually going to lay on the floor on pillows and just hope and pray that you get enough business to make it through whenever this ends. Didn't know it was going to end. Finally get a little bit better. My wife and I adopt a couple of kids. Our youngest one, we find out is special needs. Didn't know that. Took 13 years to get an accurate diagnosis and really figure out how to help her. In that time frame, lots of study on how the brain works. She's on the spectrum, but understanding ADHD and anxiety disorders and all these other things. Studied. Took a toll on my wife. She ended up being bedridden for more than 10 years, suffering from a lot of different health issues. So there I find myself being a single parent to a special needs child and a part-time to full-time caregiver for my wife. And this went on for an extended period of time. So #clueless, I'm telling you, I should get the tattoo because you don't know that's coming. You don't know what's going to happen 10, 20 years down the road. You just have to live in the moment, be present, and try to make decisions. And even when the book was ready to go, February of this year, the final manuscript, I wrote it with Susan Bradley, brilliant lady, Financial Transitionist Institute. We co-authored it. It's in our email inbox. It's a Tuesday. All I got to do is reply and say approve, and that's it. We're going to press. Going home that night, instead of celebrating with my wife, she ends up in the cardiac ICU because she just had a heart attack. And then I spend the next 4 and 5 weeks pretty much out of the office. There goes the balance again, sitting in the cardiac ICU, coming and going from the hospital, life disrupted again. #clueless. You don't see that stuff coming. Book launch. Well, we'll get back to you on that one. And that just happens. And you know what? You figure it out. Life's okay. This is what I've seen. This is how life goes. But along the way, studying the brain, it really zeroed me in to life events and how when life happens, it's really hard to make decisions. But this is the irony of it. The decisions that you and I make around life events, especially financial decisions, those are the ones that move the needle the most on your net worth. And it dawned on me, if I can help people get those decisions right, I make a major impact on their future. So in 2015, we launched Transitus Wealth Partners, started working on transition, got connected with Susan Bradley, became a certified financial transitionist, and now we have a conference coming out next year, the Retirement and Longevity Summit, where it will combine the human side of financial planning and change as life goes on with the financial side or the technical side. And that's part of a mission on the Advisor 2X side as well. So my life basically says life happens, plans change. I lived it. I've seen it in my clients. You've lived it. By the time you hit 40 or 50, everybody's had their seasons. We get it. When I share my story, Travis, most people say, well, yeah, let me tell you my season. We all have them. And nobody gets out unscathed. This is life, right? We're all going to go through it. But to understand that that's actually normal and it's common, it gives you a sense of, okay, as a financial planner, this is what I need to do. Life happens, plans change. I need to figure out how to help my people. And once that shift happens, that's why we ended up writing a book. And that's why the practice is focused on helping people make those decisions when life is just crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. Hashtag clueless, hashtag crazy. But I think, you're exactly right. I wrote this book and I have all this great material about time management and priority management and goal setting and achievement. And what's interesting? At the end of, you write all the content. This, you're a writer, like you've written some books. And at the very beginning, I realized I needed to make sure people understand why I was writing the book. So I wrote the story about my father and why I decided to leave my financial practice to go figure out balance in a time where, I probably should have just stayed put and just put my nose down. But most people tell me, Travis, it's that first chapter that just grabbed me and sucked me into the book, because everybody experiences some type of, transition, some type of big change in their life, whether they like it or not, because that's life. And to plan for the unexpected, to have these contingencies and be able to look at the human side of it. I was on a podcast that just focuses on the human side of money. It's Brandon Fraser, great guy.
Great podcast.
Yeah, excellent podcast. Highly recommend it to listeners. And, what I found with him is he and I have a lot in common, because all of my degrees are in psychology, sociology, human development, family relations. On paper, I look like an academic, right? I should be teaching at the university up here on the hill. And the reality is so much of what you're about the mind and about emotions and the human side, what Brandon is involved in, and Susan Bradley and many others, we realize that this needs to be part of the financial planning discussion. Financial planners need to be more trained themselves and training their clients to help them. So there's so much here. We could go on and on about this. We could spend probably hours just getting into those weeds, but I highly recommend that you guys pick up this book, Shaping Change. Obviously, you can pick it up on Amazon. What other, where else could they go to meet up with you and make sure that they are contacting you, or anything else that you would like to give these listeners to help them, stay updated about how to deal with transition and change, and follow you on hashtag clueless? Maybe that's what they need to do. You just post everything on social hashtag clueless from here on out, and that's where you're going to find Ross.
Thank you. We do hashtag Shaping Change. That's what we use on Twitter. So we're pretty active on Twitter. We're building out a YouTube channel now. I just switched to fee only on January 1st from being an independent. So I've been behind the wall for a long time, but now we're out. So we're putting out a lot of content on YouTube. There's an Advisor 2X channel, and that's the number 2. There's a Shaping Change series in there. There's an outcome series for people who work in the employer-sponsored plan, 401k market, a separate series for them. And we're about to bring out some other series as well, as we really get into the nitty-gritty of how can advisors help their clients with this. But check us out at advisor2x.com, on Twitter, or on YouTube for Advisor 2X.
Love it. And we'll have those links here in the show notes. Thanks, Ross, for being here. Thanks for helping us, get a glimpse into how you're helping advisors, what you've done, some of the things that really helped you to deal with the change and keep the balance or get rebalanced for our clients. I think that's huge. And for advisors out there who are listening, knowing that, yes, there's hope even in these seasons of change, I think has been a big takeaway. There's lots of great nuggets here. And I appreciate you coming on. Again, go get that book, Shaping Change, connect with Ross. And if you haven't picked up the book, Achieving Balance, go to achievingbalancebook.com. And we're so grateful you guys are listening to the show. Share it with those who would like to get greater balance and clarity and adjust with change in this specific episode. So thank you for listening. And thank you, Ross, for being on the show.
My pleasure. I appreciate you having me.